A mother Canaribou intercepts an attack on her youngster by a giant falconary. The Canaribou is a large ceralope that lives in enormous migratory herds just past the tree line on the northern tundra of striata. It is one of the larger ceralopes of the early Cryocene, weighing as much as 1,000 pounds, and is a generalized herbivore that consumes whatever hardy vegetation can survive the harsh polar winters in this region, mainly moss, lichen, and short, hardy grasses and herbs in summer, and pine flower needles and cones in winter, being one of only a few birds able to digest this very coarse and bitter food source, all of which it crops up with a small beak and chews with grinding motions of its hard, tooth-edged tongue before swallowing in a mouth lined with fleshy cheeks. Canaribou live in herds of several million, moving southwards into the pine flower forests when winter is at its worst, and moving closer to the pole during the summer, when the southern areas of the large Arctic Circle thaw for a few weeks or months. The Canaribou is among the most advanced of the vivas and has begun to evolve a two-chambered digestive system to get the most out of their diet, which is mostly roughage. Food is quickly chewed and swallowed into the crop, which has become a second stomach of sorts, and with powerful grinding motions and the aid of gastroliths, continues to masticate the vegetation into a slurry which is then more easily digested by the true stomach and the long intestines. Canaribous are also ahead of most other aardgeese of the area in perfecting the practice of incubating their eggs internally. Because of the extremely cold temperatures in the Serina tundra by the Cryocene, if a Canaribou is to breed, it has to begin as early as possible. So cold is the climate the Canaribou has adapted to survive in, however, that even if the mother keeps her egg inside her for all but a few hours before it hatches, if there is nowhere clear of snow to lay her egg when it does need to hatch, even a few minutes on the ice can kill the unborn chick. The Canaribou overcomes this threat entirely by withholding its egg even as it begins to hatch. The muscles of the oviduct are now particularly powerful and mobile enough to eject the shell fragments without their causing any harm to the mother's internal anatomy, and the chick is kept warm throughout the process while the mother beds down in a thicket out of predator sights. It is, therefore, the first truly live-bearing bird, giving birth to a fully hatched infant and never incubating an egg outside its body. By squeezing the egg methodically with the muscles of the oviduct, the mother Canaribou can also assist in cracking the eggshell to hasten the process, making its young be one of the quickest birds to hatch. The whole process usually completed within an hour or two. The calves are born in the early spring, just before the tundra thaws, and are fed with a fatty milk secretion from their mother's crop stomach until the snow melts enough to let the calves begin to forage for themselves. During the intermediate time, however, the mother is usually not feeding much either, for she must constantly stay near her newborn chick to keep it warm in its tender first days, and instead relying on fat reserves to produce the food for her young. Even after they can feed themselves, the young Canaribou require significant protection for their first year from predators, being small and defenseless. Mothers are highly aggressive during this time, driving away any creature, no matter how seemingly small or harmless, that comes too close to their offspring. Even larger predatory birds, such as pack-hunting banshees, or giant falconaries that glide silently over the tundra in the summer in search of a lost calf to snatch up. Some of the falconaries found across Serina in the Cryocene exhibit wingspans of more than 20 feet, gliding high on thermals and crossing entire continents, even seas, for a singular hunt. After night falls in the sunflower forests of Serina in the Cryocene, and most birds have retired to roosts high in the branches, one is just waking up to hunt. By day, they hid themselves in shadowy thickets and crevices, their dark plumage hiding them in shadow and their heads tucked out of sight. When the sun sets, however, the Bubirds, a specialized group of nocturnal falconaries that first arose in the Tempestine, raise their heads out from beneath their wings and peer around. Their eyes are massive and golden, with pupils that quickly expand from tiny pinpoints to huge, black circles, demonstrating excellent night vision. These birds have also evolved a crude facial disc, a feather arrangement that serves to amplify noises like a radar dish toward their ears, allowing them to hunt without using eyesight at all. For a few minutes after sunset, the hunters preen themselves, readying their wings for flight. And then they lift off, fluttering from branch to branch, peering around for any smaller birds that have failed to hide themselves away well enough for the night. The bubberb hunts somewhat like an owl, but is more adept at hopping through the trees and even running on the ground. Its flights are short and relatively weak, only useful for short distances. Stalking along, it quietly takes quick flights from one perch to another and hops along the branches, listening intently and looking around for prey. When it spots a roosting bird, it quickly pounces. But unlike its ancestors, its feet do not play a major role in restraining its victims. Rather, the bubberbs have evolved huge gapes and swallow their food whole. The bubberb most frequently targets its prey from a slightly lower perch, leaping up, and before the startled bird can take flight, quickly closing the jaws over it, engulfing it headfirst down its gullet. Prey can range from about the size of a sparrow all the way up to birds as large as 1/3 its weight, which are still swallowed in one piece. All bubberbs are nocturnal and well adapted to hide in the shadows. Dark, often black feathers are typical for most species, with some having small white patches that can be kept hidden by day, but are useful for recognizing conspecifics at night. Some species have evolved large, erectile crests along the edges of their facial discs, which are used in sexual display. Such traits are generally important to identify one another as the same species, as different types of bubberbs will readily eat one another if there is sufficient size difference, and females of all species are considerably larger than males of even the same species. This allows for niche partitioning so that the sexes do not strongly compete over food, with males catching small animals and females primarily being adapted to consume larger birds. Solitary except for during nesting time, if a female is not in sufficient health to breed or simply dislikes a male attempting courtship, she may even occasionally cannibalize her would-be suitor. The long-eared bubberb is a large species of its group, though not the biggest of all. Both sexes are rather identical, with females as well as males having long crests used for courtship display and species recognition, but females are up to twice the weight of males. A female is shown in the size comparison. They feed mostly on roosting ground birds and are competent ground hunters that take flight only if threatened and to reach roosts to nest during the day.